Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bob Pompeani riding solo with you until 11 o'clock. Little program note, join us tonight, 11:35 over on KDKA for the #1 Cochrane Sports Showdown. Mark Caboli, Jeff Hathorn, Will Graves. We have a lot of interesting topics to get to. Some of them I imagine we'll get here too tonight. 412-575-2600. You can also hit me up on Twitter at KDPomp. We have a lot to get into, beginning with injuries for the Steelers. We learned, today from Jerry Dulac of the Post-Gazette that Nate Herbig, we knew he had a significant injury. We didn't know how long it may last, and this might cost him the rest of the season before it ever begins for him. Now, he's been running with the ones up at training camp at center. He's an experienced guy. He hasn't really played a lot of center, mostly guard, but he moved over there as they drafted Zach Frazier, the #2 pick. But Zach has been very good. He's going to be thrust into that role now as the starter, unless they go out and pick somebody up. But that's highly doubtful at this point, given who's out there, and unless you make some sort of deal. But again, depth on the offensive line could be a problem. Last year they went through relatively scot-free with injury. This year already we've seen an injury to Troy Fontanu, the #1 pick. Also, Broderick Jones looks to be banged up a little bit. He got pushed around last night, and perhaps there's something with his arm or elbow or something of that nature. Not certain on it, but he doesn't look 100%. And then you add this one to Herbig. Now, they have some guys. Mason McCormick is a guy they like, versatile. Spencer Anderson has played all 5 positions. But you don't want to get to that before the season already begins. And those 2 injuries are a big one. Also, Jaylen Warren, who's really been terrific in his first couple of seasons after being undrafted. So he leaves the game with a hamstring. And you know what? Hamstrings are tough to figure out. Some of them don't last very long. You can get back. Others, especially for somebody like a running back, can be lingering. And we've seen how long some of those can go. So hopefully it's not going to be all that long. But Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network says it is going to be several weeks, whatever that means. So don't look for him on Saturday when we bring in the 3rd and final preseason game from Detroit Ford Field, the Lions and the Steelers. The Lions, a team many expect to get to the Super Bowl. Last year, they blew a 17-point lead against the 49ers in that NFC Championship game, and they lost that game. As heartbreaking as that was, they return a very good run team, Jared Goff at quarterback, and an improving defense. So watch out for the Lions. We'll see them on Saturday, 1 o'clock. On KDKA-TV. Pirates lose today. They had a chance to sweep a team at home. They haven't done that all season long. 10-3 your final there. And we'll talk about some of the moves you might expect the Pirates to make in the offseason. And to me, it starts always at the top because it trickles down. If you're the owner, you can judge the general manager as best you can based on what he's dealing with, but you don't know what kind of budget he is dealing with. That may make it difficult for him to make the kind of moves maybe he wants to make. And I'm not trying to make excuses for anyone here. Please understand that. But I'm saying it starts at the top. You have to have the resources necessary to do some of the things you want to do. Otherwise, you end up with players who you may not want, but they're there. You got to draft the ones that you do have, certainly, and they've not done a good enough job, especially on the hitting side of it. And then with managing, you can only manage what you have. And as much as I understand the criticism that comes with managers, I also know that the managers who have more talent seem to do better when it comes to their own record. So you can say all you want about they need to make changes, and you'd probably be correct. My feeling is they're going to go in with the same people they have, Charrington and Shelton, and say, this is the time. This is year 6. We need to see results because there have been no results. But it also takes a commitment from the owner to do that as well. 412-575-2600 is the number to call. So we'll get into all these topics. Want to hear from you about your thoughts last night on what you saw from the first team offense of the Steelers, which to me hasn't done anything. The first team, whether it's Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, whomever, they haven't done it. Kyle Allen came alive in the second half of that first game against the Texans, but quite frankly, they need a lot more on their offensive side, which makes me wonder what they may do now because of some injuries piling up and also the need for another wide receiver. The Brandon Ayuk situation continues to be what it is. A stare down. Nobody seems to be moving on it. Reports out of San Francisco were they're very close to signing. There was one item that needed to be taken care of. I still believe Brandon Ayuk will remain with the San Francisco 49ers, who got to a Super Bowl and did not complete the mission. I believe they have the kind of team that can get there again, but they need Ayuk to do it, despite all the other talent they have. As you see, injuries over 17 games can be a big problem. Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night comes from around the NFL. Steelers running back Jaylen Warren hamstring to miss multiple weeks, again, per Tom Pelissero. So that does not bode well for the immediate future. Hopefully it won't last into the regular season. That's still not until September the 8th when they open against the Atlanta Falcons. So we got some tweets here about a number of topics, and I'll get to the phone lines in a second. Sean Kramer says, Steeler fans, it's August. No need to worry yet. Let the preseason last year be your prime example, but the QB1 inconclusive decision could be changing over the next couple of weeks. You know, that's the thing about that. The preseason isn't important until it is important, and coaches want to see something from their team, offense, defense, special teams, and when you don't, there are a lot of reasons to get frustrated. Now, does that mean that this can't lead to a good beginning for the Steelers? No. But it could be that these problems are problems and they need to be fixed before they get to the first two games. Keep in mind, the Steelers' schedule at the very beginning has 3 of the first 4 on the road, the first 2 on the road, and then the last part of it is just as good a schedule as you're going to have, or as bad, depending on your perspective. It is viewed as one of the toughest schedules in the National Football League. It's all division games, and you throw Philadelphia and the Kansas City Chiefs here on Christmas Day. That's a tough schedule for sure. So you'd like to get off to a good start. So these situations are why it's important to at least get something ironed out before the start of the regular season. To that end, I would expect Russell Wilson to play in the season finale, preseason finale in Detroit. You got to get something going with him. Now, people out there may say that's ridiculous. Why would you do that? Look at the injuries to Jaylen Warren. Look at what happened in the game last night. I know Peyton Wilson had a concussion, or at least was being evaluated for that. So there's a lot of stuff to remember. Ryan Zedek on Twitter, he says, Bob, just remember, Ben Cherington himself said they expected the Pirates to contend, so he must be held accountable. Absolutely, he should be held accountable. So should Derek Shelton. But my point here, Ryan, if you understand what I'm saying, is it starts at the top. You also have limited resources, and if they understand that and they still can't get it done, then I guess that's a failure. It has been a failure. The results are not there 5 years into this. But my question would be, if things don't change from the top on down, if you bring in 2 new people to do those same 2 jobs, then what are you doing? If you're not going to be looking for the best of the best of the best out there and spend accordingly, then I don't know what you're doing other than starting another 5-year plan. So there's vulnerability on all sides. There's culpability on all sides. So I get what you're saying. But again, I think the ownership has a lot to do with it. Hopefully they can turn this around in this offseason and spend some money. Also, we have Dan Miller says, I love what you said about the Pirates. However, what if they do nothing? Again, if they do nothing, then it's not even worth talking about. They have to do something. They have to spend more, and not just 5 different signings of $2 or $3 million a year. I'm talking about significant signings here. So we'll see. Nicholas Brown, who is a fan, thanks Nicholas, appreciate that. He says, seems like another disappointing. I wonder long-term if Skeens will stick around. Well, that's a question. The window's now open. He's here. Jared Jones is here. Bubba Chandler's here. You hope Mitch Keller gets it figured out. That's a pretty good, formidable starting rotation. Add to it with some good bats. All right, let's get to the lines now. 412-575-2600, beginning with Kenny in Pitcairn. Kenny joins us here on the hotline. What's up?
Hey, Bob. Thanks for taking my call. I really enjoy your show. You do a great job.
Thank you very much.
I got 2 quick points to ask you. One is about the offensive line. Do you think they'll gel going forward? I think that'll be crucial. It'll help with the passing, blocking, and the run blocking to open up some of those needed run games and pass protection to get him more time, the quarterback, to read out. The second one is I really was impressed with the punting game, how he was able to get the ball downfield. I think going forward, defensively, the way our defense is working, that's going to be a plus for us. And I wanted to get your feed on that. I'll hang up.
Kenny, thank you. That's a great point. Flipping the field position is important in today's game especially. And I think Cameron Johnston did a very good job with that last night. He was my MVP, and that's never a good thing when your punter is your MVP, but he was in that game. But, when you hang it as high as he did, you make returns very difficult because coverage team can get down there. And we saw that last night. He averaged about 57 yards per kick. He had 2 of them over 60 yards. It was high in the air, and that's a plus. And that's one of the reasons why they got him, because they were getting very inconsistent performances last year, and they needed to change that, certainly, and they did. And they brought in a new kicker. But as far as the rest of the offensive line, the one thing that you hear the coaching staff talk about is being physically dominant. They want to win the line of scrimmage. Last night, we did not see that on the offensive line. We saw, on the other hand, them getting bowled over by a very good Buffalo team, especially the first-teamers, and that made life miserable for Russell Wilson. So again, it's a work in progress. We'll see how it goes, but it's a long season. They got to get this stuff figured out ahead of time, no doubt. And hopefully these will be the last of the injuries. You need those guys to play. You need Sayamalu, you need Daniels. Now it's going to be in the middle with Frazier and the 2 tackles. And Broderick Jones really is better at left tackle. But with Fautano injured, he's supposed to be back for the opener. He'll be at right tackle. That's fine. But then Dan Moore should not start over Broderick Jones, in my opinion. Now, Dan Moore has done a very good job, in his time here of being over there. He's not been great, but he's been reliable largely. But reliability should not be the only reason why he's playing over there. I think Broderick Jones is better at that if he's healthy. 412-575-2600. Let's go to Brad in Brookline. Brad, how are you tonight?
Hey, good evening, good evening, Bob. If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I make a few points about the Pirates, what makes you think that Bob Nutting's going to spend? I mean, look what he did at the trade deadline. He didn't add payroll. He had to trade Perez.
Right. He got rid of $8 million or whatever's left of his contract. Right. No, I get that, and that's a problem. In that it seemed like they didn't want to make a bigger move. And again, if that's coming from him to them or budget-wise, they have to figure out a way to make a trade, but money is a problem, that is a problem. You have to spend. This is different than owning any other kind of business. In order to be successful, you've got to spend money. You've got to be willing to lose some money along the way. So therefore, I hope they do spend, and I hope they spend big on things they need, because if you look at the bats right now, highly inconsistent. Not only that, you have people that you may not want to play in the current positions they're in. Is O'Neal Cruz and his soon-to-be 30 errors by the end of the year, is that good enough at shortstop defensively? Yes, the bat lives, and I love the bat. He has to be in that lineup. Is that his destination for a position? He seems to think so. What about them? Who plays first base next year? Tellez is out of a deal after this one. Do they bring him back? And what about Bart at catcher? If he's your starter, what do you do with Rodriguez and Davis? Because Davis bats got to play, other than Reynolds, who plays outfield. They don't have many answers there, and I think they need to do that. They have some kids in the minors they acquired by trade. If they're going to be good enough, I don't know if it's going to happen next year. Let's go to Chuck in Uniontown. Hey, Chuck, what's going on? I know you must have had a frustrating week.
I did, but as life goes on, Bob. That's what I was going to say is that to me, I think this season has been one of regression, and all your points you made about it all goes back to ownership. If ownership doesn't cooperate, there's no sense in talking about anything else. But I like what you say that if they go out and spend, and I said this before, they've got to start spending at the winter. They've got to be more active in the winter meetings, Bob. Not wait till spring training to pick up the leftover stuff. They've got to be active at the winter meetings, and they've got to start playing high stakes. They've got to spend some money and or trade some prospects. You have to spend something good to get something good.
No question about it, Chuck. It's a good point. And the word you used there was, or the phrase was, leftovers. Too many times it seems like that's what the Pirates end up with. And no disrespect to any of those players who are there. They're professional. They've been around, very good at what they do, but they're leftovers in the wide range view. So I think they need to be more aggressive in that department and spend more money to try to close the gap. After all, Paul Skeens is here, but he won't be here forever. And if they don't intend, if he's this good, and if he continues to be this good, then he's going to want money that they won't be willing to pay. So the window is going to be open next year for them. Do something about that window. Let's go to Will in McKees Rocks. Hey, Will, how are you?
Hey, Pomp, how you been?
I'm good. What's going on, man?
Oh, nothing much. Thanks for taking my call, as always.
Sure.
I wanted to talk about Andrew McCutchen with you, if I could. I know that his career is winding down, but is there any way that the Pirates would consider bringing him back as a coach?
That would take two to tango, Will. I don't know if he wants to do that. Given what he's done, now he's out on a 10-day IL here. His body's breaking down. I don't think it's any secret, and that's what happens as you get older. Trust me, it happens that way. But he's still been one of the more reliable hitters, and he has the best plate awareness of anyone on their team. Now, the problem is, do you bring him back to occupy a DH spot because he can't play the field? And if you do that, you probably limit somebody else who may have a younger, better bat with more power. Now, we got to see that before you install that person, whoever it may be, and hopefully it's Henry Davis, because his bat plays and he can play anywhere he wants, or DH. So these are decisions that have to be made. So I think it's, does he want to come back? I get the feeling maybe he does for one more year, but we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, let's go to Mike in Brighton. What's up, Mike? How are you?
Hey, Pomp. How are you doing?
Good. What's up, man?
I'm wondering, what is your over-under on starts that they're going to allow Russell Wilson to stay in at starting quarterback, being that the preseason is pretty much over and they saw their small capacity of what he is able to do compared to Justin Fields? What are you thinking?
Well, I don't know what you've seen from Justin Fields that makes you think that, though. I think they're both, they still have a lot to prove, really. They're here for a reason. I don't know. No, it depends on performance. If you're not talking injury, it will depend on performance and whatever they deem as performance worthy of continuing. So we'll see as we go with that one. I don't have an answer for you, but I think both need to get better, no doubt. Bill and Carrick, you've been patient. Thank you. You're on the air right now, Bill.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Bob. How you doing?
Good. What's up?
Good. Hey, Taylor shouldn't even be in the lineup for the Pirates. He ain't worth it. He can't hit. And Colin Joe, and they should get rid of the manager. And Tom is going to have his first losing season this year because Wilson didn't impress me, and Sean Wright, he stinks too.
Yeah, well, it's been a bad weekend, I can tell. We'll see how this goes. But, the win total right now, over and under, is only 7.5. So you can go over that, and even if you do, that leaves you with 8 and 9 if it's just by 1. So this is going to be a tough situation. They need to get some things ironed out, and you'll find out more coming up Saturday, last preseason game. You'll see it on KDKA beginning at 1 o'clock. That's going to do it for us. 11:35 tonight, KDKA. It's the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Thank you for joining us here on KDKA Plus at 93.7 The Fan, and we'll do it again tomorrow, same time, same station, 10:35 for the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Good night.